Hi, Judy. Welcome to the High Vibration Living Podcast.
Thank you, Whitney.
I thought this was perfect timing to have you on. It's back to school season, and I had the pleasure of getting to meet you at the Ecology Center when you were working with the Alice Waters Institute and the Edible Schoolyard Project in helping, local educators better understand how they can bring organic foods into school cafeterias. And this is such a brave endeavor. Um, you know, it's it's been a challenge just to educate people about how our food is grown and how they have the power to use their dollar to choose how more food is grown in this country and how powerful food is in not just our health, but our environment. So I really admire the mission that you've taken on to help get more organic foods into the school system here in California and beyond. And I'm excited for you to help teach more of us what your efforts are doing and how things are evolving.
Well, first of all, thank you. I like brave endeavor. That sounds so wonderful. My name is Judi Shils. I am the founder and executive director of Turning Green. Turning Green is a 20-year-old nonprofit organization that works with youth globally around climate action and really mobilizing students to heal the planet. Our other key program is called Conscious Kitchen, which is what you were just referencing. It started here in California 12 years ago with the goal of fresh, local, organic, seasonal, nutritious food in every school in the state of California. Our aim is North Star 100% organic, standing beside the state superintendent of education in our state of California, Tony Thurmond. So lots of leadership is starting to step in addition to having the most extraordinary food service directors and local organic farmers I could ever imagine in one state at one moment in time.
So, what sparked the idea 12 years ago that you thought, wow, I can help influence the food programs in the state of California, and I think I can help get them to buy better quality ingredients to serve our children and our youth and our future?
So I think the spark actually came way before 12 years ago when I was pregnant with my daughter. I read a book called Diet for a Poisoned Planet. I was a television producer in New York and LA by trade and didn't even know anything about advocacy or food or any of these things. And I read this book and it basically said to me, you're bringing a child into this world, recraft, recurate your life and eat organic food. Don't bring pesticides into your world. Clean with vinegar and water, like all the things that we know can mitigate impacts on next generation. What my motivation was 12 years ago was that I live in a place, Marin County, California, where organic farming really came to be. Many of the pioneers live and lived in this place. And when I realized that I had to recraft how I was going to feed my child, I really leaned on these incredible farmers that were growing plethora of everything. And I learned about the importance of organic, what it could do for people and planet. And I was challenged by my board chair at the time to do something in our community because we've been working globally with students when we had started originally here and all of a sudden we were there. And she basically challenged me to do something that really mattered where we lived. And what really mattered to me is a food system that was equitable and just for everyone. And over the years, as I visited schools and got to know educators, I would hear also from parents that every time they tried to change a food system in their school, they were shut down. And it was typically marginalized parents. And I couldn't hear that anymore. So I went to the school district down the block from where our office is, which is a very underserved student population and community. And I asked the superintendent if we could do a 1-week pilot. Pilots are always an easy yes. So we did it, and it was incredible. We had Michelin star chefs preparing the meals every day to the specs of the USDA, with the cost of the food being at that time $2 a lunch. And it was incredible. These chefs made everything beautiful. The kids, I always talk about it, felt like we were on the moon, that all of a sudden they lighted into this dining hall that used to be a multi-purpose room with tables set with cloths and silverware and flowers, and they ate everything that was in front of them. And seconds and thirds, there was no waste. They were happy and nourished. Second day of the week, all the teachers came and sat with the kids, and I'm going to cry. But you saw the power of food. You saw the power of community. And I think if we all remember that food is the thread between humans and cultures and climate and farmers, if we only look into our communities to know what we're supposed to do, and if we realize that the health of the next generations lives in our hands, then we're going to go off on these crazy journeys and make everything right. And I feel like that's been what we've been doing. We see the barriers, we see the reprehensible food that's okay for the USDA to feed kids. We hear about the lobbying, and we look at our administrations and we realize, like, who's in charge? How are we caring for these kids? They're our next generation leaders. And the Conscious Kitchen for me is leveling the playing field. It's allowing kids to know that they're honored, that they matter. I remember right before we did our first pilot in a large district, it was 32,000 kids, 54 schools, and we did a pilot in one. And I went in one day and just sat down next to these 6th grade girls, and I was watching them pushing food around on their plate, and it was awful looking food. And I said, if you could get great food served, every day in your lunchroom, would that make you feel good? And they all looked at me and they said, could we have it by the time we graduate? And this was May, and they're graduating in June. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, these kids don't know that anybody really cares about them. And that was my propeller to expand the work that we'd done in the little school district in Marin City where we started, and to help everybody understand that we can do this. We just need people on the same team to not say what if, but to say let's try. And I think that's kind of where we are, and I think that's where we are as a state. So many food service directors all in. That's where we are with having, I think, the most extraordinary small farmers on earth living with us, many of whom haven't been able to make a living, but school food is, as it is said, the largest restaurant in our country. And California all by itself has 6 million kids. So imagine that's one state of 50, and that's how much we can feed every day. So,
Well, what you are after is not impossible, because if you look at other parts of the world, everyone's sitting down together at a school and having lunch. My brother was a teacher in Spain for 2 years, and he was in the Andalusia region of Spain, which is the olive oil region. He worked at a little elementary school surrounded by olive fields, which luckily were all organic and regeneratively farmed beyond its time. This was 2008, 9. And it only became, these olive oil fields that the school was around only became organic and regeneratively farmed because after multiple generations of farming the olive fields, they decided to introduce pesticides, and then all the family members started to get cancer. And so they figured out that the change in their practice was making the family die. And so they started to educate themselves about regenerative farming and how they picked the olives the old-fashioned way, and all the traditional farming methods really weren't just for a better quality product, but for their own physical health. And obviously that then improved the school and everyone that was around the school. But I share all that to get to the real point is, when I went to visit the school that my brother was teaching at, he, I believe, taught 3rd grade, taught English in the Spanish school. And he was so excited to show me the cafeteria, so excited to show me where he ate all of his meals and introduced me to the people that cook the meals there. And he talked about how the food was so good at his school. and everyone eats the meals. The students, the teachers, the staff, everyone sits down for a hot, fresh meal every single day. They look forward to the food. The staff makes fresh, delicious hot coffee for everybody in the morning, and everyone gets a birthday cake on their birthday made for them by someone in the cafeteria. And he just like, this was really like the heart of the school, and they ate with real silverware and real plates, and it was just like something he was so proud to show me. And this is a very, very tiny little town in Spain, and if like they can figure out how to do it, why can't the incredible state of California and the entire United States figure out how to serve food that makes people feel good and perform better in school and be able to learn and just feel better and grow on to be just great people? Like I think we need to like restructure what we think of school, and it's not just about an education. It's a full physical, emotional, spiritual, mental opportunity to help these little souls evolve.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the question, like, why aren't we doing it? And I think, there's so many bad actors that cause good things to not happen. I think Paris is 100% organic in their school system, maybe Denmark. I mean, there are places that are every place but here, probably, are doing amazing work. And I think that my hope is that this becomes so contagious for every reason that the kids are able to listen and learn, that they're nourished and their bodies aren't sick, that our lands are nourished, that our farmers are making a living because of the goodness that they're giving back to their land. So I think if we keep telling the stories and having the stories to tell, we had a really good one that came to life this week. So my partner for the past 8 years has been Barbara Jellison, who runs the West Contra Costa Unified School District in NorCal. And she's allowed me to test every theory I have. She brings in every organic item I suggest. She's literally like why I get to do this work. And she's very influential in her sphere of food service directors, and they all listen to her. And she shows up wherever I go, she's there. And we're together. And we've been trying. She wanted chopped organic lettuce 3 years ago. So I said, let's, get it from the distributor that they all are told to buy from, that is subsidized by the USDA. And they couldn't get her organic lettuce and chopped lettuce because everybody makes Caesar salads. So they need chopped romaine. So many processors that would chop lettuce, because schools don't have enough labor to do that, have gone out of business. So just this week, we've been working for 2 years on trying to figure out how we're going to get affordable chopped lettuce to the hundreds of schools that want it because they don't have the labor to chop it. And we were at a meeting with my team, a processor in the Central Coast, which is called the salad bowl of the world, pretty much. So much of our greens come from there. And Barbara. And we were trying to figure out how are we going to get the price right so everybody gets what they need. The farmers get what they need, the processor, how are we going to get it from here to there? So what's the cost of logistics? So we finally figured it out pretty close, but it was still like more than probably schools would pay. And Barbara suddenly said, I have extra money in my equipment fund. How about if I buy the machine? We're renovating our kitchen. I can't keep it here. It'll go to Jose's place. He's the processor, place called J Leaf, and we can process for the whole state. And it was like, oh my God, like you put a few people together that all have different superpowers.
Yeah.
And as opposed to having like one school district get their 4 pallets of lettuce every week, which is a ton of lettuce, he can now chop lettuce for any school that wants it in the state. And we can get it wherever it has to go. And it's affordable. So the whole cost that was going to have to be built into the cost of goods for him to cover the machine, it's a very expensive machine, went away. And Barbara bought the machine. So I think about, and these stories happen over and over and over again, when we put a bunch of people together in a space and we talk about what the barriers are for all of them, all of a sudden, when we were in Orange County, Laguna Beach decided that she was going to do away with her third-party prepackaged garbage food company, and she was going to start from scratch. And I think, when you're sitting with people and everybody's sort of on the same page,
Yeah.
you want to do it too. You want to raise your hand and you want to be part of that. And I think food service directors for so long haven't known that they could. Don't have time to build an entire supply chain based on what they already have. They're so encumbered every day with so much work feeding so many kids. But if we can help build a supply chain and guide them to, where they can buy, everything changes.
Yeah. And you help them meet other people that are doing the same thing. And
Totally.
that really helps no matter what career path you're on. If you can meet other like-minded people that are doing your job,
Yeah,
it makes it a lot easier to get things done. You don't have to be on an island alone.
exactly. And I think there are a lot of those people in our world right now. And
Yeah.
lots of people are on in the same end goal, best food we can have for kids in schools, and they're approaching it in different ways. I live as a problem solver. I worked in live television for many years. No isn't an option. You do what you have to do because you're on the air, you're alive. And that mentality, for better or for worse, lives in me.
Yeah.
And I feel like, to hear what the barriers are and then to very quickly figure out what the solutions can be and must be is really fun. And then when you have a whole bunch of people with you on that journey that have different expertise and different life experience, then you figure out, the layers that make it incredible.
For those that are listening and they're not understanding why it's important that there's more organic and local food in schools, can you help them explain why organic, local, and regenerative farm foods in schools can make a difference?
So I think if we think about like conventional food versus organic food, conventional food or non-organic food is sprayed with, in our state, the worst chemicals there are, banned in most of the rest of the world, promoted where we live. Things like Roundup, glyphosate, malathion, like all these horribly toxic chemicals are put on conventional food. And that's the majority of our food system. We did a study about Ventura County earlier this year, and one place that grows strawberries there had 32 million pounds of toxic pesticides dropped on that one little area. And it was nobody's job to worry about what it was doing and how it was impacting. And, everybody that lives there sees the impacts, just like what you were saying. And I think there's something called the precautionary principle. When you think something might be harmful to human health, you err on the side of precaution. And even if we didn't know what we know about the impacts of toxic chemicals, and most of what we know is one chemical at a time, we don't know about the burden of so many chemicals on top of each other going into our bodies, our food systems, our water, our air. We have to take stock of how to move away from those practices. So small organic farmers that have opted, many of them were conventional farmers, and they got sick, or their friends got sick, and they realized that what they were doing was killing them. Yeah. And so they transitioned to organic farming because they believe that that's the healthiest thing for them, for the land, for the community. There's so many conventional farms, particularly in places like the Central Coast, that are right next to schools. So imagine aerial spraying and, all of the off-gassing and everything that's flying in the wind.
Yeah.
And nobody fights for the kids. Like every time there's a piece of legislation that could be protective, the industry thwarts it. So as humans, parents, grandparents, friends, whatever we are, it's up to our generations to look after our future in ways that we haven't. And, and make all the noise. Yeah. Make sure people understand, even in the simplest ways, like why would you put toxic chemicals on the food system when you could grow organically.
I still think it's really important for us to simplify the difference between these foods because as a personal chef, I still come across people who tell me we don't believe in organic, and you don't have to believe. There's nothing to believe if you don't get it. I understand, but you can't run away from it. And if you choose not to participate, you pay now or you pay later. No one has to necessarily prove it to you. Your life circumstances and your health will evolve in a way that you'll get it at some point.
Yep.
But why not avoid the negativity that could come? Why not choose food that has essentially less ingredients? Why not choose a tomato that has less ingredients, essentially, less sprays? You don't have to see it to know it's there. It's like believing in a higher power or a guide or an angel or God or whatever you want to. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And I think that's a really important thing for people to start to understand about herbicides, pesticides, and insecticides. You don't see it on your food, but it's there and it's going to have an outcome. Your body can't just process it all.
Yeah, and it's going to not just be in your body, it's going to be in the land. It's going to be everything that's coming at all of us. And I think the more it's not, like the more the conversations are constructive, the more that we bring this food into schools and educate the kids so that they go out in a different way, that they go home and talk to their parents, the more things will change. And I'm seeing like rapid fire change.
Yeah.
Even in this moment, I'm so proud of all the people that are making different choices and asking how to, and so proud of the farmers for also like the conversations I have with farmers every day. Somebody called this morning and one of the logistics delivery folks delivered a pallet of strawberries to the wrong school district. And the school district that needed them didn't get it. And she like woke up at 3:00 in the morning and ran the strawberries over. And I think like there's such heart and love from these pharmacy districts and vice versa. And when the relationships happen, when you see things like that happening, or somebody delivered blackberries to a school district that just started buying organic, and she like is committed to by September 1st that her entire produce category is going to be organic. But she honored the farmer that came, and it changes their world because, in this process, the farmers aren't honored, the kids aren't honored, the lands aren't honored, the communities aren't honored. And at some point, it's combustible.
Yeah, and I just love the opportunity for everyone to get to learn about where their food comes from, and to remind you about like everything that's happening in your community. I think it's very exciting and fun and supportive, and it allows so many things to be connected.
Yep, and then the farmers are heroes, and maybe kids will want to be farmers, at some point. But yeah, I mean, the connectivity of our food system to the outcomes of our communities, I think are massive.
So for people listening and trying to understand the whole food system for schools, who's the decision maker that decides the food that's served to our kids in school?
It's a big question. So the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, subsidizes school meals. The California Department of Education, in our case, administers a lot of what happens. The Department of Defense, that has, strange as it sounds, oversees logistics, subcontracted by the USDA. Allocations of play money basically are given to every food service director in every state. And they have to go spend that money at DoD distributors up until this past year and a half because of, I'll say, our work. But there's a lot that came before us. we've been able to get organic food from small farmers, organic produce on these lists. Prior to that, there was no organic. So schools didn't know where to get organic, didn't know how, didn't know. A lot of schools have learned about their local sourcing, but there are all these parts of the system that if they work right, then things will change. But it starts with the USDA. USDA has an allotment for breakfast and for lunch. That's all the money that you get. You also get, the schools get reimbursed for kids that eat. So if you have 10% of your 100% of kids eating, 90% aren't, they're not getting reimbursed. The food's not going to be great because they're going to have very little money in their cafeteria fund. Yeah. So the goal is to make food that kids love. And we had a school district, a little tiny school district that went from 12% participation, that's how many kids eat, to 95% when we shifted their system to organic and got a chef in the school. Because the food is made beautifully. It's served to the kids. They interact with the chef. They want to be in the cafeteria, so it becomes a communal gathering. So it starts with the USDA. It goes to the state departments of education. All of the different kinds of distributors that are paid by the USDA are involved. And then there's noise. Like noisy parents and noisy community members can change outcomes, and the fights have to happen. You have to be vocal. And I think also, there's so much sickness and just ill health of mind and body that people are starting to pay a lot more attention to what they can do to support their kids and their lives, basically. So it's a conundrum of lots of different pieces, but the federal government is at the top of the pyramid.
So it's interesting because it's also requiring a whole re-education for parents to trust that the school lunch is going to be nourishing and healthy for their kids, because you have a whole generation like my own. We're taught not to eat the school lunch because it was processed food. It was just fried food that was reheated and served to us. So we all grew up having to take our lunch because of what the school lunch had turned into. And now we're having to kind of retrain generations of parents to trust to give their kids the school lunch, so then the school can get more money so it can continue to improve the ingredients, and so the kids can ultimately get a fresh seasonal organic meal.
Yeah.
It's almost like every parent needs to be re-educated and get on board so we can all change our community and the food in our community.
Yeah. And I think that's a really big piece. Like when we start working with schools to not just on produce, but to transition, the parents, the board, everybody has to be bought in.
Yeah.
And there has to be that intention. And once everybody gets it, it becomes like such a huge focus and pride. And, and then the chefs that are brought in to run the programs become the influencers for the school districts all around them. So it literally takes a village. And it takes the intention of us as humans to change the outcomes.
Yeah, we all have to start participating in our communities again. And a good example I have is my dad writes for the local newspaper here in Laguna Beach. And he writes the sports section. He's the only sports writer. He covers all the sports at the high school. And he started doing it when I was in high school in the 90s. He was asked to start writing the articles for the local paper because they needed somebody. Started helping out, and he did it for free. And he's written for free for the school, for the local paper, for over 30 years. And I asked him, we were on a family vacation in South Africa, and he couldn't go out for the day. He had to stay in the hotel room and write his articles and submit them. And I was like, why are you doing this? Like, you've done this for so long for free. And he said, Whitney, this is what you do when you live in a community. Everyone has to play their part. Everyone has to step in and volunteer in a different way. That's what makes a community. And I will never forget that. And so I've been looking for what's my thing. How am I going to help the city of Laguna Beach like my dad has helped the city of Laguna Beach? It's really important. And if you really dive deep into every town in America, there are people like my dad, Frank Aronoff, that are doing these jobs that, that that it only happens because people are willing to volunteer their time. And it's really amazing. I don't know, it's just like we need to be reminded that like not everything's a job. We don't have to get paid to do everything, that we don't need to volunteer our time to these big organizations. There's sometimes just little things we can do in our town to make a huge change or just impact or support.
Yeah. I think such a brilliant statement by your dad. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing if it wasn't for the community that we live in. Like there's so much expertise, there's so much heart. And I feel like we're this like little magical bubble. And every time like I speak about something we need, I'll get an email or a phone call that just says, "Hey, do you need any help? There's something I want to do." And I think if we do live that way, if we live as community in community, we solve everything. Because the expertise that's around you that you don't even know is there,
Yeah.
will step up when asked. Or sometimes they'll know that the dad just raised his hand.
I did hear that. I wish I would have saved the quote that basically there is always someone in your community that has the answer, that has the skill, that has the tool. And if you don't have the tool and no one you directly know has the tool, you just need to open your mouth and start asking, because you're then forced to expand your network to get the tool. And then that's how you create community. It's something along that lines. It's like we don't need to go without, we don't need to live on an island. There's always somebody willing to participate.
There's always a solution, because of that. And I always think about it too as like 1 degree of separation. If you really utilize what's around you in the best way for the best reasons, that everything happens it's supposed to.
So for people that are listening and their kids are in school, what do you suggest parents do if they want to help be a part of this organic school lunch revolution?
I think they need to band together, because it's way more fun and easy when you're a team as opposed to one person all by themselves. It can certainly call us. I was just looking at, I don't know if you can see this, but I was just looking at this little booklet that's so old that we're trying to update. It's How to Start a Conscious Kitchen.
Yeah.
But I think that you just have to pick what matters to you most as a parent and fight for it. So, there's a whole series of questions that you have to understand before you can actually go and make a good case. Who's the food provider? What is it? What are they eating? How many kids are eating every day? All the things that have data points that can help make a case stronger. And that's a lot of what we do as parents, just really help guide them so that they can, and, also understand who the food service directors are at the schools and get to know that community, and plant yourself in that community and do the stuff that you want to be vocal about it. But be kind. I think when we first started, everybody was so afraid that I was going to be this crazy activist person that was coming in. And when you start to build relationships and have conversations and can explain why this matters so much and bring humor into it, everything you have to, things will change. Nobody wants to do harm if they don't know how to do something in a different way than they've been taught. So I think use your voice, figure out within your school what really matters, and then start to advocate. And use all the tools in front of you, engage with other parents that might feel the same way, and fight the fights.
What are the programs, so people are more aware, that the Conscious Kitchen has been doing throughout the summer with school educators?
So basically, we did a road tour. It's the Organic Farm to School road tour, and we just picked places where we hadn't visited. We did culinary workshops every year in different districts. which you attended. And there are a lot of places we hadn't been. We're trying to make a dashboard to show people where they can order food from, farms in their communities. And we didn't know everybody. So we decided to go on the road and meet the farmers, meet the food service directors, have them gathered, feed them beautiful food, and talk. And so that's what we've been doing. And it's been so much fun. There's so much return on spending that time from the people that show up. I'm looking at the calendar on the wall. Every month we're going to different places, and it's great. It ignites the heart of the people that are making the decisions in these school districts. And when that happens, the people that I forgot when you said who makes the decisions, ultimately the budget is controlled by the food service directors. So if the food service directors feel like they can do this and make these changes, and it's not going to break their budget, and they understand the why, they go there. And they control unbelievable amounts of money. And they can choose to use it in the best ways. And that's our job, is to really help and encourage and guide.
When it comes to being a food service director, which I'm like, part of me is so sad that I didn't take that track in my career now.
Not too late.
What is the career path of a food service director? This person that's controlling what every child, in a state is eating, from elementary school to potentially high school. How did they get that job? What does their background look like?
So a lot of people start in entry-level positions that maybe never worked in culinary before. They're trained. They're not paid well at all, which is really sad. And it's a job. When they start to move up the ladder, like I've met in the past couple of years some really young directors that just excelled. Like they came in already prepared to, be able to have that job one day. And maybe they majored in nutrition, or maybe they were a master's of public health, or many different things. And I think this generation of students is one that is, or this generation of young leaders, like grad school, post-grad school, of that, they have a very different context of school food, of what they can contribute. Their academic pursuits are very different than, a decade ago, because they're studying food systems, they're studying, nutrition, and they want to apply their skills. And if school districts are smart and can recognize that, then that makes all the difference in the world.
Is there a particular school district or school that you've gone to where you're really impressed with their food program? Like who are the 5-star A+ culinary programs in the state?
There are a lot. And there are a lot that are in very different stages. So in terms of produce, seeing like there's one school district called San Ramon Unified. It's also up here. All she needed to do is be told something about how she can source, given a list of vendors, hold her hand for a couple weeks, help her learn the lay of the land. She's going back to school 100% organic. Barbara, who's been my partner at West Contra Costa, is my hero in life. El Diablo, Santa Clara, down south, Apo. These directors are doing extraordinary work against all odds. Wow. And there are many of them. Tiny little districts. Our state, 75% of our districts are 5,000 kids or less. And, and reaching all of them is, it's going to take a minute. There are 1,000 and I think 19 school districts. But those that we've met with are probably 100+ districts that we've actually seen and talked to. Probably close to 2 million kids. They're all making change. So they're all my heroes. So I think it's scattered across our state and it gets better every week.
What are other states that you've heard are pushing organic food forward in the school?
Nobody is doing what's happening here.
Okay.
That we know of. And, we've talked to a lot of people in different places. Pockets of everywhere are starting to think differently. Organic isn't necessarily everybody's North Star. Local, better food, climate smart food. But nobody's taking it on, I think, the way that we are in the state.
That's amazing.
It's really cool.
It's really incredible considering the size of California
Yeah.
and the layers of culture within California. I think it's incredible. And
Yeah.
when I first heard what you guys were doing, the part of me that has been like so beat down by the food system in the US was like, there's no way that's possible. And then I went to, one of your events at the Ecology Center and I heard you speak and I thought, oh my God, it's happening. Like there's no stopping this train.
There isn't. There's absolutely no stopping it.
That's the moment I heard you speak, I'm like, oh, this is happening. You either get on now or you get on later, but
Exactly.
like everyone's gonna get on the train.
Yeah, it's kinetic, incredible energy. And like every time I walk away from a day like that, I know like it's real and nobody's going to stop.
Yeah.
We just have to keep supporting the infrastructure that's supporting them. And we are.
So what are the different ways that you would love the listener to support Conscious Kitchen and the food programs in California schools? How would you like us to continue to learn, educate ourselves, or get involved or volunteer?
I think, like we're always here to help guide people in directions based on where they are. I talk to many parents every week, talk to school districts every week. I think take an interest in what your kid is being served in school and do some research. Like the Organic Center is a fabulous Rodale Institute they all have such great information that's really simple about how to understand the importance of these decisions.
Yeah.
Get to know the food service directors, get involved. There's wellness committees in all these schools. Not a whole lot of them are looking at organic, but we have to be. So I think just what you were saying about your dad, get involved, like do the stuff that matters to you. You're saying like, I'm getting like calls from parents whose kids are 3 and they're not going to be in school till they're 4, 5 or 6, but they want to fix it by the time they get there. That's what we need.
Yeah, I agree.
We need that. We need involvement. We need a ton of money. If anybody wants to like hand us a couple $1 million, we'll be really happy. But I think when we live as community, especially in this state where there's so many opportunities for great food, and we shift systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a blessing to watch what you guys do and see what the farms that you guys are going to and the programs that you're doing and the way you're educating people. So I do encourage anyone that's listening to check out the Conscious Kitchen Instagram, and I'll make sure that links in our show notes so you can visually see the work that you guys are doing. Are there any books that you recommend the listener reads if they want to learn more about organic food, regenerative farming, and how food plays a part in your overall health and well-being?
I think the book that changed my life, which is a very old book, is Diet for a Poisoned Planet. And there's so many of them, but I also think, like Googling and looking around to see what current stories are. There's a new bill that's wanting to make its way. In fact, there's a lobby day in Sacramento next week to get rid of processed food, processed ingredients in school food. So there's a lot of like current stuff that's happening every day. Like get informed.
Yeah.
If you Google like books about healthy food, healthy school food, my brain is so clogged up right now I can't think about what the names are, but I think that there's so much available just at the tips of your fingers to get yourself educated. And when you steep yourself in wanting to learn, you're going to affect change. And one person can do a lot.
I completely agree. I actually have a mug. I used to live in Washington, D.C. I lived there for 5.5 years. And before I moved to D.C., I bought a mug that I still use as my mug for my cup of tea. And it's the JFK quote, "One person can make a difference and everyone should try." And there's definitely days where like I want to throw the mug out because I think no way. And then there are other days where I
Yeah,
see
yeah,
that mug and I see that quote and it makes me so happy because if everyone did think that way, we would live in the place of our dreams.
yeah,
You know, everything would flow with ease and grace as I know so many of us are trying to create.
yeah.
Um, it is
Here's
possible.
to that. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think it's going in this direction whether people are like it or not. Is there one thing that I find I've always found challenging, even though I lived in Washington, D.C., is being abreast of the different bills and the different things that are going on at our state capitol here in California. How, what do you follow? How do you stay aware of these different things that are
There,
coming up
there,
when it comes to food?
I think some of the best ways is to get familiar with your state legislature and the websites. I think
Yeah.
there's a tracker that Civil Eats has on their website
Okay.
that tracks a lot of what's happening around food systems federally, but a lot of the federal stuff goes down to the states as well. And that's a really good place to get informed.
Okay.
So I think that would be a good start.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
there anything else that you're really into right now in the food, health, wellness space?
Shifting the food system for schools is like my life right now. And there's so many layers to that. And figuring out all the entities that have to get involved to make it right. That's my day and night every
Do
day.
you think you'll ever get back involved in television or film, doing a documentary on the evolution
Maybe,
of food systems?
maybe someday if I have time in the years. Yeah, I think about it, but there are other callings, I think, right now.